Peace to you all. Be well. Te rangamari kia koutou katoa kia ora. So, who owns land in New Zealand? Ultimately, the Crown is the only one with allodial rights. Now, allodial rights is the right to own land. So no one privately owns land in New Zealand, regardless of what they think. Only the Crown owns land legally. So they can privately hold the title of land, but this is not ownership. This is similar to, let's say, indefinite holding over the land. Somewhat freehold property is a holding over that land, the title itself. It is not ownership. And a lot of people get upset when they realize that legally this is the case. However, it actually provides quite a few benefits, but then also some major setbacks. And so perhaps in a subsequent video I'll talk about some of the benefits and some of the drawbacks that come from this. Ultimately, there's kind of two principles at place, ultimately that, the government seizes system, owns it all, and that, we can't really, on the other hand, we have, land that can't really be owned by anyone because everyone perishes. So therefore, we're just stewards over that land for a time frame. These are the two kingdoms or governance systems at play that have a fundamental difference in how they view land and ownership and these concepts. So I will speak just perhaps on allodial land, allodial rights. So again, allodial rights is the ownership right, the right to own land. And again, the Crown is the only one that legally owns land. Okay, so if land has been acquired by the Crown unlawfully, and so this is an example of basically they've taken the land away from an existing title holder and then actually placed the land into the holding of another, actually displacing the original title holder, they have to make that right legally. To not do so is to have an unjust government that is actually stealing, and it's not holding itself to account to the same laws that it is made for everyone, and it is bound to itself. So if they behave in this unjust manner, they really don't have any right to punish others on the land that are stealing themselves, because they're not holding themselves to account. And so there has been, in the past, there has been some situations where the Crown has displaced original title holders and brought in new title holders upon that land. Now that's a breach, that's a major breach of a whole lot of law, and that has to be made right. You're displacing now not only that family, but the generations to come. So, and there are situations where, through the Treaty of Waitangi, that this relationship was meant to be upheld, that the Crown was to establish and maintain Māori rights to the land. We all become equal through this governance system by nature of all ultimately becoming citizens, subjects, and tenants, if you will, upon the land. However, this doesn't take away some, again, we'll talk about the two kingdom principles. There's one opposing itself upon the other. So if you are of the kingdom of let's say that Atua, God owns everything. He's the only one that can own anything. We're just stewards upon the land. and then you have another invading force saying, oh, we own it, we own land, our governance system owns land, then you have to find a way of creating peace between these two kind of unreconcilable differences in mentality pertaining to whenua, pertaining to land. So perhaps I'll go into some more detail pertaining to that in subsequent videos. But just keep in mind that really the battle here is not over land, but it's really over ideological concepts. And typically this is political. It's to do with governance. And it's really two opposing ideological frameworks. Now, there has been quite a lot of injustice done, even within the Crown, not upholding the same laws in which it says everyone is bound to. Now, we have to go into, is the Crown, is it sovereign in itself, right? And so this, again, goes back to two mindsets. You know, if the Crown has the right as an entity, as a governance system to say it is sovereign, and can't be held accountable, then the people also have the same right to profess that they are sovereign. With a lot of generational stuff, especially coming from maybe European backgrounds, it's been entrenched upon generation and generation that they are, you know, they're just subjects, they're just citizens to the Crown, you know. The mentality that they can actually be free upon the land is so foreign to them because they've had generations of really subjugation. They've been subjects for such a long time, citizens. So to have this other worldview of being like, well, only God can own the land because it will all perish, you know, is really, it takes time for that invading force to really reconcile that view, even though Ihukarati Jesus Christ talks about it, you know, and you know, debt and servitude, and being a tenant on the land, a lack of ownership, all these concepts, these ideological battles, you know, really work themselves out in a physical way. But I think a lot of people, you know, that come from a European background don't actually realize they're enslaved in a number of ways, and really legally enslaved. A lot of people just like, oh yeah, I hold the title, therefore I own the land. No, legally you don't. And that's the reality, and that's a hard truth for a lot of people to hear. But this is really what Māori have been standing for such a long time, and that idea of like, hey, look, is this the best way to go about things? You know, so I'll just leave that with you. I probably spoke on the matter for too long now, but yeah, kia ora to you all, peace to you all, ranga Māori, and hopefully see you in the next one. Kia ora.